Just get comfortable, have a drink.
I love you. It's been an amazing year.
So we'll probably have to talk kind of loud
Yes.
so that they can hear us. So yeah, we decided to do something new this year in that we wanted to reflect on our past year. First of all, I guess to start off, we're Grassroots Organic Land and Lawn, and I'm Brett, and
I'm Livs.
yeah, and we're co-owners and operators of Grassroots Organic Land and Lawn, which is a soil regeneration company. And it's really exciting because through like running the company, we actually kind of fell in love. So that's fun, and we've been kind of on a journey since then. We've gotten married and had a child, and I guess to start off, that's probably been one of the biggest changes for this year is we had to bring the baby to work this year.
Yeah, and I think the best part of it is that we discovered that our baby was born on World Soil Day.
Yeah, and that was completely just took us by surprise because we sort of were looking around on social media and saw that it was December 5th,
Yep.
World Soil Day, and it just kind of just was like, of course, right?
Yep.
So our baby Flynn River was born on December 5th of 2024. 23, and at the end of the season. And yeah, so this past season was our first full year working with her, and man, she did amazing.
It's been amazing.
She
was born to do this.
She was, and yeah, she just fit like a glove. We were so worried going into the year, like, what's it going to be like having a baby and trying to run Grassroots, a fast-growing, smaller business, that's
focused on soil regeneration.
Yeah, and there's a lot of excitement around what we're doing, and we feel like, we're getting more and more busy, and so it's just like kind of daunting, the idea of taking a baby with us to work. We were excited about it, but at the same time, we were like wondering, is this going to work out? And she has the perfect personality for working with us, and she's social. She's gotten to know the clients, and the clients love her back, and it's just been like an extension of her family, really.
Yeah. I remember at the beginning just thinking when we first brought her with us, because we had the whole winter with her, and she was so used to a routine over the winter, and then to switch to being outside and just like getting used to what we were doing with the loud machines and whatnot, I was kind of overwhelmed. And it took a little bit to transition her, but once she transitioned, and it didn't take very long, I was kind of surprised.
It turns out she really likes routines, and we got her own hearing protection, and we would set her up with her own little play space like while we were working, and of course, like I said, the clients were so kind. They would come out and talk to her and entertain her, and so it's been really fun, and we still managed to grow the company and still managed to like keep up with everything.
Yeah.
And so
And the biggest part of being able to take her with was that we invested in the stand-on aerator. That made such a big difference.
Right. Let's talk about that.
That was a little bit of a whirlwind.
That was so. At the end of 2023, we invested a major investment into a stand-on aerator, because part of what we do is we aerate the soil, and then after we open it up, we like to come back and put organic matter over our top dressing, so it works its way into the soil and starts to actually change the soil composition, which is what most of our soils so desperately need. They need organic matter and lots of diversity of healthy soil organisms, which is another aspect of what we do. And so it's just fun because we get to watch these soils transition from being considerably just dead soil to these thriving ecosystems where all the nature in the area is starting to pick up on what's happening. Many times we'll drive up to a client's house and we'll see birds foraging all over the lawn, and their neighbors will have treated chemically their property. And
we feel like the birds are waiting for us.
Right, it's almost like they're anticipating us because we have a routine of showing up at these places, and it's like they're celebrating when we pull in. And what's funny too is when we drain our tank at the end of the day with what's left, the leftovers at home, these birds are going crazy. Like, you know, it's like bird bath for these guys.
No, but there will be birds like rubbing themselves up against the truck, and like there's 20 birds all like collected at this like puddle.
Right, puddle of compost.
Yeah.
Too. It's just fun to see nature like so positively responding to what we're doing. And so, and you know, and I think that's what's exciting about what we do at Grassroots is we're connecting people back to nature through this process of, you know, revitalizing their soil, and then through that process, you know, allowing nature to like come into that system more and support that system even further. And once you understand how everything's connected, that's when the clients actually start to really get what we would call a return on their investment, in terms of not only does it require less management once your soil's healthy, but it connects you to that whole sacred cycle of, or sacred circle of life is what we call it. And through that we find fulfillment and people finding hope again by investing in nature and then seeing nature respond to that.
So this year,
The challenges.
this year started with the challenges of the stand-on aerator.
Right.
That was kind of rough to get through.
It was. Let's go through that. So we made the decision to buy this piece of equipment. Of course, being a small business, we're financing this piece of equipment. It's quite the investment, but we were also recognizing how much it would, how much time and energy it would save us, and so you know, the investment made sense to us. And so we did research. We found what we thought was the best product out there for the money, and we didn't want to spare any expense because it was kind of going to be a major part of what we do, and it is a major part of what we do. But so
basically,
we ended up, go ahead.
Well, it was 7 hours, right?
Right, so a brand new piece of equipment, we're 7 hours into using it, and what was funny about it is Libs hadn't even tried it yet.
Oh, yeah.
And so I talked to her and I said, you should get on it, you know, and give it a whirl. You know, it's pretty easy to use. And so she, you know, she gets on it and she doesn't make but 1 or 2 passes on a property, and I see a mist spraying out from underneath what would be like the deck where the aerating tines are. There's this like mist shooting out, and so I go over there and I'm like, hey, you know, turn it off, and there's hydraulic oil spraying everywhere, like all over the equipment, all over the client's yard. And so at this point we're just like, what is happening?
That was a rough beginning.
Right, so it was a season of breakdowns though, because we had the aerator brand new breaking down, you know, twice on us, Then after that, our trailer, right?
Yeah.
Remember?
Yeah.
The axle went out.
Yeah.
So like we're at a job site and
In South Bend.
and all of a sudden I looked down and the trailer around one of the wheels, I noticed it was like off center from the axle. Like it didn't look right. I'm like, something's wrong. And yeah, upon further investigation, the bearings had like gone out on the trailer. So we're stuck in South Bend, and granted we live in Elkhart, so we're stuck in South Bend.
Yep.
And ended up meeting a really good person who walked us through how to like transport the trailer back to his repair facility back here in Elkhart. So imagine that, a trailer repair shop in Elkhart. I know, it's crazy.
No, but and we have amazing clients because both with the aerator and the trailer breakdown, our clients were the clients that the locations that we were at, both of them were super understanding and helped us out.
Yes, we're really tripping over themselves to help us.
Yeah,
and that's the kind of relationship we've built with our clients, because I think it's this process of restoration where we're helping them restore something, and they're grateful through that process.
They are.
They really appreciate what it is we're doing, and
it's amazing to be a part of that.
it really is. And we've seen transformation in people through this process. And it's funny because we've talked about this, but like a lot of times folks think they're hiring a lawn care company.
Yeah.
And what they're finding out though is that it's actually a transformation and of, you know, not only of your lifestyle, but I think the understanding of all the connections of nature and how investing in that process brings about that feelings of hope, and especially in an environmental movement where hope is needed more than anything. I mean, Libs, you talk about this a lot,
yes.
where we feel like hope is sometimes lost in all the negativity.
Yeah.
Well,
and part of that is this idea of having as small a footprint as possible so that you don't, because of our impact on the environment, and so like the message out there is to have as small an impact. Where
reduce.
Instead, the message should be have as big of an impact as possible in a beneficial way.
Right. Exactly. That's not.
And remember, like, I think the biggest message that I want out there is to remember how forgiving the environment is and how much healing can happen. Like, through this process of soil regeneration, it's amazing the results that you get.
Yes, the healing of the trees and the plants.
And the whole, like, ecosystem.
Right.
Of each of the clients' properties.
Yes.
It's being out there every day and just witnessing, you know, the transformation.
Yes.
Of not only the property, but also, you know, how it impacts the client and the people around.
Personally.
Yeah, and us.
And us, yes. And we've learned through the process of guiding folks through this sort of way of thinking. It's different, and it requires a lot of like consideration and careful use of the language because we've been so ingrained with.
You're throwing us back to like when I first started to language, but I guess we won't go there.
Right. No, yeah, no,
but
yeah,
yes.
no. That, you know, and what Libs is getting at is when she first started, Grassroots primarily was, well, I was running Grassroots. I started it back in 2006. But by the time the Libs came on board, Grassroots had kind of stagnated. We were growing.
But it had established itself.
It had established itself, but it wasn't the company that I had, you know, hoped for at the time or imagined in my mind. I felt like, you know, things were stagnating a little bit, and we weren't having the impact on soil health that I definitely wanted to have. So fast forward to Liv's coming in, and it took a lot of time to like sort of figure out what we wanted Grassroots to look like and how we wanted the company to be perceived. And we had another friend that helped us tremendously with this process. And we spent a lot of time meeting and talking about, what is it that we want Grassroots to be in terms of a company and the ideas behind it. And through that process, we figured out that, it's really important on how we, approach the language. Because there is this...
we discovered it was the energy,
Right.
the energy of us and
Right.
the clients, and we needed to be able to maintain our energy.
Definitely, but I wanted to talk a
combination.
little bit about the industry and how it's gotten people to where they are.
Yeah.
And this is something we
Oh,
talk
yeah.
a lot about is, the industry's been very good at getting people to ignore soil health and sort of, rely on these, what you would consider, the easy fixes. We can come in and spray chemicals, and the problem with that is obviously is not only is it toxic and it's, a disaster for our human health, but it breaks the soil down more. So, and the longer they do this, the more dependent, your plants are going to become, because that living soil that should be providing your plants with everything is being knocked back every time they put these chemicals on the property. And when I say knocked back, I mean killed off.
Well, and not only that, they, a lot of times when our clients are transitioning, there is not an understanding of what it looks like to progress, to get to a healthy point.
Right.
So, because the industry has trained us
Exactly.
to see weeds as
The measuring stick
the measuring stick.
of success.
Yeah.
Like if you had weeds in your system, it must be unhealthy. Instead of explaining to people that plants move through a succession, so that you're going to have early successional species of plants if the soil is in early succession. So everything has to progress. It's not like this one thing, you get to a certain point and you stop. The succession stops. It's always moving towards the next succession. And so having weeds, it doesn't mean that you don't have a healthy lawn. It means that soil is still early successional, needs more development to get to what it is you want to grow.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're looking to grow, a lawn or, landscape, then, you have to understand the soil succession so that you can get that soil to select for what it is you're trying to grow. And the industry doesn't teach anybody about this. So we're putting trees in early soils, early successional soils that would select for weeds. We're putting, deciduous hardwoods and things in there of trees, and wondering why these trees are suffering. It's because that soil would have never planted that tree, but through succession it would have grown weeds until those weeds died off, organic matter comes into the system over a long period of time. Then your first tree will start to come in, but it's not in that early successional stage, which 95, probably 99% of systems are early successional sandy soils or, heavy clay-based soils. And so they're not fit for what it is we're trying to grow. And that's why we're always fighting that system.
Yeah. And I think the other I guess for us or me, it's frustrating is just the idea that there's this pressure to use the conventional systems.
Oh yes.
And how it doesn't make any sense, because for you want your family to be healthy.
Right.
And most of these most of these properties that are using conventional, I mean, they can't go out on their lawns for a
Especially
while.
subdivisions where
Yeah.
like people are competing with each other. And you know, in our like vision, people would start competing for healthy soil. Like once people understand why healthy soil is so important, why it's important for us to have that, whether it's the water we're drinking, the air we're breathing, or the food we're eating, or whatever we're growing, the secret is that the healthier the soil, the healthier we are. And so I think, you know, in our vision, like the long-term like hope is that people start to see that as what we should be striving for. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like instead of seeing the little chemical sign in the yard saying stay off this yard, what you see is a beautiful system. Can you imagine if subdivisions all invested in their soil? Like these would be diverse ecosystems where people could grow healthy food and all kind of like work together to restore the land and then provide the healthiest environment for their family.
And
Because people say we moved to the subdivision for the kids.
Yeah.
And it's like, when you think about it, it's like these subdivisions aren't healthy. They're rampant, like toxic dump sites. I mean, you've got people slinging chemicals that don't even have licenses to do this properly.
Well, and a lot of the industry, I mean, like a lot of the workers, sadly, I mean, it's not those individual people's fault, but a lot of them, you know, are a little careless, and it's sad because I think it's the lack of investment, you know, into those employees and whatnot, and not only that, the industry is known for how, you know, the abuse of the like clientele.
Right. Oh, for sure. Yeah. Not only do they abuse the clientele, but you recently told me they test their workers' blood levels to see if they've reached a certain level of toxicity. Then they have to take time off. So they're forced into like a furlough if their blood levels have reached a certain level of toxicity. I'm talking about conventional lawn care companies testing their employees for the levels of toxicity so that, you know, they know whether or not to furlough them. I mean, how crazy is this?
It's insane. Okay, we went on a complete tangent.
Back to 2024.
I think one of the highlights of 2024 was, so we created a new ad just for trees.
Yes.
This year, or last year.
Yeah, last year at this point.
Yeah, and getting our first client through the tree ad.
Yes, the tree ad. So when we say tree ad, the reason we did that was because a couple of different things. Number one, we feel like we've been a bit pigeonholed as a lawn care company just because I think when people think of Grassroots Organic Land Lawn, they think of lawn care. And we're working on ways to change that perception and become more of a soil regeneration company. Because it's really about anything you're growing. It's not just about your lawns. It's about your landscape. It's about your trees. It's about your gardens. It's about anything you're growing. And so that's part of our challenge, but where were we going with this?
Oh, our first client.
Oh yeah.
The tree ad.
Yeah, so the tree ad, and that's the reason we came up with this, because we felt like sometimes we get overlooked being a lawn care company, but what we've discovered is that there's really nobody caring for the trees. And tree care has largely become about cutting off the dead stuff, or
They do pruning too.
They do some pruning and things.
But actually, and this is, I mean, most arborists, I'll just say most arborists, but when they're looking at tree health, they're only looking at, what you can see.
Correct.
And so the issue with that is that the gut and the immune system
Right.
is in the soil.
Exactly.
And that's where we need to address.
So if you don't like what you see above ground, then most likely what's below ground is even worse.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not something we feel like is being considered. It's like, how do we treat what we're seeing above ground? How do we, treat these symptoms that we're seeing? And, the symptoms all link back to an unhealthy soil. So it's like, for us, that's the beginning. You gotta start there. We have to go back and give these trees what they would be selecting for in a natural system. And that comes through the use of diverse compost tea applications on top of restoring the organic matter back in the soil and giving these trees what would be found in a forest system.
Yes, but I want to go back to getting our first client with the tree.
Right.
Well, because you got that phone call, you talked to. So you want to share about that?
This gentleman bought his house 15 years ago, and when he initially bought the place, he had Colorado blue spruces that he was already concerned about 15 years ago when he moved in. He called an arborist, they came in, they basically told him, these have a disease that's incurable, but we can give them injections and maybe they will live. And they were talking $1,200 or somewhere $1,200 to $1,500 for 3 Colorado blue spruce trees. And then not even be able to, stand behind that in terms of whether the trees are going to live or not. So he opted not to do anything with them. Fast forward 15 years later, he gets our tree ad.
And his trees are still.
They're still there.
They're still there. They're still alive.
Right. He hasn't been doing the conventional treatments. The trees are still alive. Granted, they're not in the best shape. They are showing, signs of decline. And so we went in. Well, he was excited because he goes, I've never tried anything with the soil. And so he goes, I had to give you guys a chance. Before I decided there wasn't anything I could do, he goes, I've never tried this. And so, it made us excited because number one, we got that response from that new ad. Which, I think these ads for trees are going to lead to people thinking more about other aspects of their system. In other words, if they didn't hire us because they thought we were a lawn care company, once they see what we can do with their trees through the soil, they're going to want to apply that to the other aspects of their ecosystem, including their lawn, their garden, their landscaping. Why wouldn't you?
I think what was so amazing about getting that first client is that this client thought similarly as us. When we explained the process and why we do this.
Yes.
It made sense to him.
Exactly.
And I think there's a lot of not that arborists are know a lot about what they're doing and whatnot, but the industry is putting out some misinformation.
Yeah. This idea that trees, there's no cure for these trees, sounds a lot like conventional medicine.
Yeah.
There's no cure for these diseases, but we'll keep you alive just long enough to suck your health insurance company.
And so I feel like we people question a little bit. They're hesitant to go to a lot of times.
Part of the challenge for Libs and I is to break the conditioning and from the industry telling people that they need these chemicals in order for these systems and these trees to be healthy. And they do a lot of times get those instant results, but the long-term harm is that, the system becomes more and more dependent on those chemicals. chemicals. So as it's breaking down, it's going to start getting fungal disease. Now we have to come in with a fungicide and spray that. And and as you get further into this, spraying for fungicides and different ticks and fleas and all that. That stuff is like some of the most toxic of the applications. So it's like it gets more and more toxic as you go. And so yeah, we want to start thinking differently about what it means to be healthy.
It's frustrating coming from a perspective of health and just wanting to take care of others, basically.
Right. And it's funny because we have some clients that will dabble back into chemicals when they start to get a little bit of weed pressure here and there, because they don't want to fully let go. And it's what Libs was getting at earlier with the energy. The more controlling energy that there is, the harder it is for nature to get going and get established.
And we've seen it over and over again.
It sounds rude, but it's not.
Yeah, we'll have a client who's been with us for years, and we've been fairly aggressive. I mean, we're not always super aggressive, but there's some clients who we are pretty aggressive with.
And when you say aggressive, you mean like with how we're like trying to transition their soil.
Yes.
So we're like, we're doing a lot of different things to get their soil healthy quickly.
Yes. Which is putting in the organic matter, doing the compost tea.
Right.
And then we'll get a new client whose property is just in early successional, basically.
Right.
Whether it's a new build or just the property has been on a regular program of conventional.
Right.
And it's amazing when we see like these properties, like both of them, and the new client like completely embraces like the program and just follows all of the maintenance.
Right.
And just the difference in
So
how fast it progresses.
When there's an embracing of the process and people are like patient and understanding, it takes less time. Like nature, somehow the energy translates over to where, the program can take off a lot quicker. When we have folks that are like skeptical or they're like constantly questioning, or, maybe they're coming in and doing a little bit of treatment here and there, or it just seems like it takes a lot longer, or maybe we've had clients where we've been ready to walk away. Because we don't understand, like, there's no diversity in the system. So we'll show up and we'll notice, why isn't there any clover? Why isn't there any broadleaf? Why isn't there any, it's because you find out most likely they're using chemicals still, because they haven't been able to let go. And so again, I think it's the letting go process. And it's hard to let go. I mean, I'm not gonna sit here and act like it's an easy thing to do. But once you let go and let the process go forward, then it can take off and it can actually like start to progress instead of being stagnated in the same spot. It's like it's almost like as if the succession just stops.
We need to embrace, I think, just as a society in general, we need to embrace nature's way of revealing its own unique beauty,
Exactly. And learn to appreciate it.
Learn to appreciate it instead of, and I don't have any issue with, like, I want to have a nice landscaping and whatnot, but there's aspects where, you kind of just have to embrace whatever. There's times when, a spot is really wet and maybe you need to put like a rain garden in, or like whatever.
A drainage issue.
Yeah, a drainage issue.
Right. Instead of just, and I think what Liv is getting at is part of being organic minded is like understanding the system you have, and that, if you have a thick canopy or a woody system, you're not going to have a thick, lush lawn, because that requires more sun.
Well, and that's a wooded property is later in the succession.
Correct.
Then you're
selecting more for the trees and your
grasses.
landscapes and perennial plants. So we have to understand what the environment, number one, that we're working in, because the whole idea is that we want to assist, right? We want to like help the process. So
Yes.
you can't help a process if you don't understand it. And so I think what happens is a lot of folks are doing things, they're putting sod down, they're seeding areas, and they're not getting the results they want because the companies they're hiring to do that work aren't telling them, you're not gonna have success growing lawn here. Why don't you put down some wood chips and plant some perennials in the understory of these trees, you know, and create some kind of perennial garden. And if you tell people that, it's like the light comes on, they're like, oh, I never thought of that. You know?
Yeah, yeah.
And so, you know, we have to like understand the systems that we're trying to manage, and I think that's what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
And through soil succession and understanding soil, it's given us a better understanding of those things so that when we approach these systems, we can say, hey, you know, it doesn't make sense to do that here.
Yes. Okay, we got on a tangent again.
We did.
Yeah. We gotta get back to 2024.
Back to 2024. You know, what I'll say is what we're excited about is, you know, collaborating some more with, you know, these other companies that are like-minded and wanting to engage in this idea of restoration. Because, you know, I think it's big. I think if you're in the green industry, and I'm looking at you, True Green, and the rest of you, and you're not talking about soil health or soil regeneration, you're gonna get left behind, and that's just the facts. People are waking up to soil health, and the way I believe it will come about is there will be at some point a monumental shift in the consciousness, and people are gonna leave this chemical lifestyle behind.
Yeah.
And it's not, and you know, that's why I tell clients, don't get discouraged when you feel like you're the only one. A lot of times it can feel like that. You know, I'm one person, the whole subdivision's using chemicals. How can I make a difference? Because the change is gonna come exponentially. At some point, there's gonna be a shift, and people are gonna wake up and they're gonna leave behind this idea of we need chemicals to grow things. We don't. And I think the more we understand how it's linked to our, you know, a lot of the diseases and a lot of the life-threatening conditions that people are coming down with are linked to these chemicals.
Yeah.
It makes less and less sense of why we have these things in our lives. And for us, and I'm speaking for Livs here too,
Yeah.
that's the most pressing environmental issue,
Yes.
is the chemicals.
Yes.
And I don't hear the kind of
Enough of that.
concerns about chemicals that we hear about other things and other aspects of the environment.
About chemicals? Well, okay, chemicals and soil regeneration. Huh.
Okay, of course.
I know, we went on a tangent.
Right.
Well,
It's
that's
an
part of
important-
what we were excited about.
Right.
We're having a hard time,
We're having a
like,
hard time.
like
That's okay.
reflecting on 2024.
Right.
I think it was just, it went by so fast.
It really did.
And it was a whirlwind a
was.
little bit, you
It
know?
was a bit of a whirlwind. Like some of the things we didn't get to, I felt like, you know, was because we were kind of dealing with the new aspects of,
Yeah.
you know, of what, you know,
I think,
having a family business.
yeah. Well, it's something that amazes me every year is the way that, the different ways that Grassroots grow.